It's time to accelerate. Hi, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Join me as I host conversations with the leading experts in sales, marketing, sales automation, sales process, leadership, management, training, coaching, any resource that I believe to help you accelerate the growth of your sales, your business, and most importantly, you. Hello, and welcome to Accelerate. Today is Frontline Friday with my usual guest, Bridget Gleason. Bridget, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great, Andy. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing fine. So where do we find you today?
We find me in the SumoLogic offices in Redwood City. A fine, beautiful day. And for you, Andy, you're the one that moves more than I do these days. Where are you today?
In New York today.
Okay, East Coast.
Enjoying a sunny but kind of chilly day. But it's supposed to warm up this weekend. We're recording this in February. It's supposed to be in the 60s this weekend. So
nice, beautiful.
Yeah, get out and do something. So yeah. So anyway, jump right into it. Now that we've caught people up with the weather and where we are is, because I'm sure they're all dying to know.
No, I'm sure.
Is, let me know. You write in if you're tired of hearing about the weather. We're going to talk about cold calling, because I'd come across an article quite a while ago that hadn't had a chance to surface it and have us talk about it. Author talking about cold calling being dead. And, we've gone through a lot of conversations, you and I, on Fridays about, sales development reps, business development reps, account execs, the specialized sales model. And here's an article that advocates that really there's nothing wrong with specialization, but perhaps we're specializing in the wrong way. And instead of having sales development reps, that we'd be better off to stop annoying customers with the cold calls, because author contends that no one likes receiving cold calls, no one likes making them, which I think is absolutely true. Is is there a better way to allocate money? Perhaps better investment, more effective investment in demand generation can really take the place of what sales development reps are doing today?
I don't think anyone would argue that people hate making cold calls. They hate receiving cold calls. I think the world is open to a better way, with the understanding that the companies, SumoLogic included, we're trying to expand our reach and talk to more people and obviously get sales. What does the article say, Andy, as an alternative?
Well, what this person puts out is the idea that you, through a combination of more effective demand gen through your marketing investment and driving people to your website, having an effective sort of live chat presence through the website where you can engage people with knowledgeable reps that when people come to the website, engage them in real marketing and sales conversations through chat, to then hand them over to the account execs at that point, saying that people that come to the site are demonstrating an interest of qualification that's worth more time than being proactive and outbound reaching and disturbing somebody and disrupting somebody's day if you catch them on the phone.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I was running sales at Engine Yard, we did that really effectively. Engine Yard sold to developers. It was a platform as a service for primarily Ruby on Rails developers. Mm-hmm. And early on there, I was thinking about this issue. Developers are probably, I don't know that more than any other category, but I would argue they're right up there in terms of being annoyed when they get called by salespeople. So what we did is we did have a live chat on our site, and I hired some very bright, right out of school technical folks that just could man the chat line, and just their job, even though they were part of the sales team, their responsibility was really just to be helpful. Mm-hmm. Just be helpful, get the questions answered. What do they need to do? What issues are they having? And we started this experiment with, I hired 2 of them and ended up growing the team to 8 or 9 and really expanded the sales team more in that direction than the closing reps. And just as you're talking about in this article, They would do the very similarly. Once somebody really generated interest and looked like they were ready for a sales conversation, could then hand them over to one of the closing reps. But yeah, I can appreciate that approach. I think the key here, and one of the topics you and I have talked a lot about, is this close alignment and relationship between marketing and sales. And as a sales leader, I can't drive demand toward the website in order to create that interest, in order to have more people initiating conversations through chat. So I really rely on a strong marketing department to be able to do that. So working hand in hand is super important.
But at the same time, though, you have your outbound sales development reps. I believe at one level that the reason we cold call, and especially in a lot of situations, there'll be people that argue vehemently against this, is that the reason that we cold call is that we're not generating enough leads. And I talk about this in my latest book, is that, in an ideal world, marketing generates enough good leads that sales doesn't need to invest money in people whose sole function is to go out and make cold calls.
I don't disagree with that at all.
Okay, so if we use that as a premise, then what you're saying then is you have your sales development reps just really out of necessity.
Absolutely. I think everybody does.
I don't know. I mean, the book's been written. A friend of mine, Jeb Blunt, wrote a great book called Fanatical Prospecting. He and many, many others would say that anybody that thinks that they can build a business without proactive business development is nuts, is fooling themselves.
But I think that goes back to, Andy, the fact that it's very difficult and perhaps unrealistic to expect that marketing can go create the quantity and quality of leads that you're looking for.
Well, their argument would be is, even if they could, you'd still be crazy. Because, there's some people that actually believe, and I don't believe this at all, and people who are listening to this, feel free to send me an email at andy@zerotimeselling.com if you agree or disagree. But there are some people out there that believe that, let's see, if a lead that you develop through a cold call, through a proactive outbound, is going to be a better lead, more likely to close than one that comes to you through an inbound, that a lead that you develop through outbound proactive is on average going to be a larger deal than a prospect that comes, and respond to demand gen. And I'm sort of laughing because I think I think those are ridiculous assumptions. There's nothing about the method of the original point of contact that's going to dictate the size of the customer or their likelihood of closing.
So I think on this one, I don't see it as much of we don't need to rely on beliefs here. We can look at data.
Yeah.
And so I'll tell you that in different selling environments that I've been in, what you describe, the data supports the fact that an outbound, a lead-generated, sales-generated lead that a rep finds, they cold call, they go after, they close, etc. Again, in certain situations, there's not one size fits all, or this is not true in every case. But in certain situations, it was true that the deal closed faster and for a higher sales price than the ones that were coming in based from marketing.
So why would that be?
Well, because in this particular situation was because marketing was very effective at bringing people to the website or bringing leads that were of the quality wasn't there, and they were all like really SMB accounts. They weren't the mid-market or larger accounts that we were going after. They just hadn't figured out yet.
There's misalignment there in terms of marketing. But I'm saying in a theoretical sense, if marketing was trying to address and bring in the same targeted customer profile that sales is doing the proactive outbound to, that there's no reason one method of initial contact with the prospect should dictate size or likelihood of conversion.
Well, I think in a lot of cases, Andy, marketing is trying to identify and bring those leads in. And I think that oftentimes marketing and sales can be in alignment. but their ability to, I mean, they're having the same struggles that we are as salespeople in terms of getting through the noise. And I think their intention and their effectiveness may be two different things. So I don't always say that it's because there's not alignment or that they're not effective. I think it's hard. I think it's hard.
Right.
And I guess I agree with you that if marketing could bring him in, we wouldn't need outbound reps. I don't see a world in which that exists. In the world that I'm in, I should just say, I don't know when that will exist. Perhaps, and there are companies, I mean, I'll say there are companies that they'll have, maybe you wouldn't call them outbound reps, but they'll have sales development reps that marketing is generating so much inbound and so much interest that there's a layer that has to sift through and figure out which accounts are, which prospects are going to be flipped over to a closing rep.
Yeah, now the guy that wrote one of these articles we're talking about here today, though, is VP of sales at a company that's done away with their SDRs, and shows in the article shows the math for why that money that he would spend bringing a rep on board, paying a salary for X number of months until they can close a certain level of deals and so on, or generate a certain number of deals that can ultimately be closed, is that that money spent in demand gen through marketing is going to generate more activity and more leads for them that they can close than their outbound rep. So basically, take the salary you'd pay for outbound, invested in effective marketing demand gen.
So I will tell you, in my experience, I could give the money to marketing. And again, it's not that marketing's misaligned. It's hard to spend marketing dollars effectively. I just think it is. So I don't disagree with the ROI. And hey, if we knew, and if marketing knew that they could go take these dollars and generate that interest, I don't think anyone would disagree. I wouldn't disagree. I would love to not have to have an outbound team and people cold calling if I got enough inbound. But I guess in my experience, Andy,
and
I haven't
for your SDRs
found
that are listening to this program, Bridget loves you. It's nothing personal.
I think they would agree. I think it's because I could repurpose them to something different. So I've got a super talented team, and there's lots of things that they could be doing. I just think that it's right now. I have not been in a place where marketing has been able to figure it out to the extent that the outbound team wasn't important. So yeah, I guess I love the premise of it. In fact, I'm totally on board. And again, I think the SDRs, there are other functions. These are at least at SumoLogic and other places where I've been, super talented early sales professionals. Put them on the front lines. They'd be delighted to move from where they are to the front lines. It's not about me not wanting sort of people in the early stages. It's that I think it is difficult for people. It can be a grind to make a lot of cold calls, and I don't know a person that would say I love getting a cold call. I've never heard anyone say that, or don't feel annoyed, or don't. So I think there's some friction there that would be great to minimize or eliminate.
Yeah, no, I agree. So we're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back and continue talking about this subject. You're here with us today on Frontline Friday with Bridget Gleason, and we'll be right back.
Hi, this is Andy. Connect and Sell is used by sales reps at nearly 1,000 companies, including hundreds of technology startups and several Fortune 500 companies, to overcome the challenges of getting prospects on the phone. Companies using Connect and Sell grow their revenues faster by enabling their sales reps to have more sales conversations in 90 minutes than they could otherwise achieve in an entire week. Connect and Sell can be deployed directly to your sales reps, or you can take advantage of their outbound on-demand service, which delivers qualified prospect meetings scheduled directly on your sales reps' calendars. Visit connectandsell.com to learn more about how Connect and Sell can start filling your pipeline today.
Welcome back to the show with my guest today on Frontline Friday, as always, Bridget Gleason, holding down the West Coast. I'm holding down the East Coast today.
We got it covered. We just need someone in the center.
That's true. Somebody in flyover country that we
Someone in the center.
All right. So another interesting thing I read was sort of along the same lines as someone about wanting to have more, replacing the proactive outbound with more effective demand gen, and then effective sales conversations or marketing conversations through live chat and other means through their website, is a statement that if the messaging is really going through email these days, or email and or texting as opposed to phone, is that really when you're hiring SDRs, you really need to prioritize good writing skills over good calling skills. And I thought that was sort of interesting because so much of what's being done now, the emphasis, at least from a tool standpoint, is really on sort of broader scale automation of some of these initial sales outreach, right? Even though there's some quote unquote personalization that supposedly takes place, but those messages aren't being written by the sales reps themselves, though. So, where did you sort of come down on that? I thought when you're hiring an SDR, how do you consider writing as part of the skill set that you're looking for?
I think writing is a super important skill. I would say their communication skills overall is what I look for. They are still going to be required to have conversations. So instead of saying prioritizing writing over, let's say, verbal communication, I would say communication skills, strong communication skills in general, is what I think is important. And it is important for the SDR, certainly, that we hire at SumoLogic, and always has been. I think good communication skills, just in general in business, are very, very important.
And so not becoming less important through the automation. Take a simple sales development platform. There's going to be a series of templated emails that are set out for the sales development reps to use as part of their sequence or their cadence or their funnel or whatever you want to call it based on the tool you're using. They're not creating those, right? How much of their personal touch are they really putting on those communications?
I require that they have personal touch on all of the cadences.
So they're putting their own personal spin on some of the, or is it just, putting in one sentence in the body of a letter that personalizes it? To what degree are they really personalizing? So
it depends on, in the case here at SumoLogic, it depends on, let's say, how hot the lead is. So we classify leads as tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So tier 1 are look like the best fits in terms of a product and service match. And so if it's a tier 1, we require quite a bit of personalization and sort of research and understanding how our product might fit this person in their role, in their company at this particular time. And so it's not just a gratuitous sentence that they put in, but really needs to be well thought out. And Andy, it may not be a paragraph. So good communication is often succinct communication. And one of my favorite quotes is one by Mark Twain, who was a very prolific writer.
Right.
And
I know this quote.
Yeah, if I had had more time, I would have made it shorter.
Yeah, I sat down to write a short letter, but I didn't have enough time, so I wrote a long one instead.
Exactly. And so I think sometimes the craft of effective communication doesn't mean I can write a lot. It means that in a sentence or two, I can convey something very powerful. So I think in the SDR role, there's quite a bit of cognitive skill that's required about, being able to do research and connecting the dots and understanding sort of overall business context of how a prospect might be operating. I think all of those things are very important, and communication skills certainly falls into that category.
So, one of the issues that I see along the personal line of personalization, we spoke about this last time in terms of the wall of shame or the hall of fame, depending on which direction you want to be for SDRs, but is how much time on average is a sales development rep given in order to do the research and the personalization given that they've got some fairly stringent demands on their time relative to number of contacts and so on. I mean, do they get 5 minutes per? Do they get 2 minutes? I mean, how do you factor that into the total sort of load balancing with your SDRs and accomplishing their metrics?
Yeah, and I don't think there's, again, I can't give you a number that's going to fit every situation. So I think that really depends. I think you should certainly be able to do the research in less than 10 minutes. Let's say up to 10 minutes for a tier 1. Maybe tier 2, 3, you're going to spend 3 to 5 minutes. Maybe tier 1, I would argue that maybe you go up to 15 minutes. I mean, the tools make it very easy if you can be very effective at where to look and how to look. But reps do need to prioritize the prospects coming in also so that they know how much time they should spend per lead and per prospect in terms of the research. And this brings me to another quality that is very important in an SDR function, actually in sales in general, is good time management skills and understanding the things, what to do more of, what to do less of, and what to eliminate altogether. Mm-hmm. And that's also a very, very important quality, again, is time management.
Well, and part of that starts with you, though, right? I mean, in terms of, they're going to look at it and saying it starts with you because, one of the things you see in study after study after study about sales time management is that reps will claim that they only have 40% of their hours available in the day to actually interact with the prospects because the rest is weighted down with bureaucratic demands, which, I don't know, you give me a sense of what happens in your organization. To me, that number always seems to be unsupported by data, but, it's sort of the number that's out there. So if you were to ask your reps, would they say, gosh, management has us weighted down with all these other things other than selling, so that's taking our time, and we're not really able to manage our time?
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure they would say that. I would say that about my management too. I mean, I think that's the constant challenge. I think about that when I have meetings and, our weekly team meetings and forecasting meetings and the different regional meetings. I think about it all the time. Am I weighing people down with things that are not necessary? And I put meetings in the bureaucratic in the category of this is not a set and forget. This is something we need to continually be iterating on and looking for feedback from the people who report to us around, are we spending too much time on things that are not critical and could be handled more effectively in a different way and not taking up so much of their time. So I'm very aware that I can be a participant in that problem, and it's something that I think about on a regular basis.
So if you had to estimate for your team, what that number would be, the amount of their normal 8 to 9 hour working day is available for them to actually engage in sales activities, what percentage would you say that is?
God, actually what I'd like to do is go back and I could go look at their calendars and see, I think about it with the SDRs specifically. Yeah. There's, they may have one weekly larger group meeting. Mm-hmm. So that would be an hour. They have a weekly meeting, the team with their direct manager. That's another hour. They have one-on-ones with their manager. That would be another hour. So that's 3 hours. Let's throw in, we're not bogged down with meetings. We've got tools now that allow a lot of the Salesforce.com entry to be automatic. So they're having to do, let's say, another hour meeting with the account rep that they support. So let's say 5 hours out of the 40 hours. And I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that I'm missing in there. But I would say it's 15%.
Yes, gosh, you'd be way above average. I mean, in a positive sense.
I know, and I'm probably missing things. So I don't want to give myself a very good grade here until I go vet it out, because
Let's
they
get
could
it
be
independently
listening.
certified.
I know they could be listening, saying, "What is she thinking? We've got this and we've got
They're
that."
perfectly
but
welcome to send emails to me when they hear this, and we'll
Yeah,
we'll have a discussion about it.
Straight, set the record straight.
That's right.
Either walk over to my desk and tell me. I listened to you, Bridget, and you are so off track, and I will be happy to correct the record.
So, have you ever thought, and this is something that I've done in the past with companies I work for, is and work both as a consultant and as a VP of sales, was we'd hold our main sales meeting each week, starting at 5 o'clock in the evening. So it didn't interfere with sales time.
The only reason, I mean, I wouldn't mind doing that. We have a team that works the East Coast, so they're generally in the office by 6 a.m.
Oh, and they're gone early. Okay.
And so they're gone a little earlier. So that would be a bit of a challenge for us. I've thought about that. And there are, like, when we'll have a town hall meeting for the company, those typically start, 3 to 4. So there are cases where they do have to be here later. I would, I wouldn't do that here. And then again, I've got a team in EMEA and APAC, and so trying to get everybody on the same page, that's not possible to make it convenient for everybody. I've got somebody calling in at 8 at night and somebody calling in at 6. And
well, the answer is you can do it after 5 in each of those locations. You just have extra meetings. You yourself.
Yeah, and that's
not happening.
That is going to be hard for me to squeeze in any more meetings.
So, last question for you before you go, and because I know we're limiting ourselves we're strict on time today, is just a coverage on salary. So, was at a conference, heard a lot of figures and so on in terms of how much annual recurring revenue coverage you need to have for an AE salary, account exec salary. What metric do you guys use in that regard?
For an account exec or
for account exec?
Again, Andy, that's a difficult one to answer because our account execs are depending on what level they are, they're going to carry a different quota. So it's really tied to their salary and what their quota expectation is.
And is that fairly individualized then, you're saying?
It's tiered.
Okay.
So I wouldn't say it's individualized, but it's tiered. But I do think you need, and again, it's going to be different company to company, depending on what the gross margin is of the product that you're selling. There's a lot of factors that go into it. And typically,
I was thinking of the SaaS business in general. I mean, you're going to have dealing with relatively high margins there.
Again, it depends on the SaaS business. So, for example, ours, because even though we're a SaaS business, we have our services based on Amazon, the platform. So we've got platform costs that are going to change the SaaS metrics. They're going to change the SaaS metrics a little bit. So they are going to be different than maybe what one would consider a very high margin traditional SaaS business that doesn't have a platform cost that can be actually quite high associated. Okay. So I think it's important to understand the metrics of your particular company and what the margins are, and knowing what that break even is, and then knowing what a rep needs to bring in order to do that. I mean, that's something that I know per tier. So when somebody moves to a new tier, it brings an additional quota weight with it because they're getting paid more, hence there's a higher break even.
Yeah, well, I brought it up because there's a question that somebody asked of me, and I could quote an industry figure that I had seen, which was 4 times AAR, 4 times the salary is the coverage that's required. But it's just interesting to see if that comported with what you...
I wouldn't say, I mean, I'm just listening. Ours is, Yeah, that's about, I would say, again, depend on the business. I would say it's going to be between 3 and 5 is what I've.
So yeah, it's in that range. All right.
So it's definitely in that range.
Yeah, because I've had one client that was like 2 times, and I thought, okay, this is going to be problematic for you. Even at relatively high margins they had, it still seemed low, and they got a lot of pushback from their account execs when they were trying to raise the quotas, and sort of people throwing facts and figures and industry statistics at each other back and forth. But I was just, less curious, and somebody had asked me about that. Well, good.
Yeah, it's probably just not sustainable. You may do that early on, and you're trying to break into market and keep your reps happy. But I don't think that ratio doesn't seem sustainable to me.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, well, good. Well, thanks as always for joining me on Friday, and thanks everybody listening for joining us again on another episode of Frontlines Friday. And we'll look forward to talking to you again next week, Bridget.
Sounds great. Have a great Friday and weekend, everyone.
All right. Thank you. Talk to you later.
Thanks for listening to the show. If you like what you heard and want to make sure you don't miss any upcoming episodes, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Stitcher.com. For more information about today's guest, visit my website at andypaul.com.